We're going to talk about demystifying developer experience, DevEx, and why it matters, why it should matter to you. We've all had that experience where we're using that tool or a service that it turned out to be a disaster. It could be the worst deployment process that you've probably ever seen, or the most painful code base, or the worst issue management system. Excuse me. Sorry. Excuse me. Yeah. Or it's documentation that's so confusing that it makes your head spin. Or maybe it's a combination of those. Who here has that feeling? They're like, yeah, no, I definitely, when you mention that, I can think of a couple. Okay, got one. For a couple or shyly, it's all right. Just raise your hand. There is going to be coming a moment very shortly where you all will want to. It's going to be an audience participation moment. So get those hands up and get them ready. Exercise that. Not punching the air. Go up with it. That's right. Good. So Nordic APIs, they actually gathered some examples of some really bad developer experiences over the years. We've all had that moment where we encounter kind of some changes that happen to an application that introduce new features, also known as new bugs, into the system that aren't actually documented. Maybe the company knows about the issue. They're not going to be able to fix it for a little while. They know a workaround, but they don't document the issue. So we've seen those examples of poorly documented features or bugs. There's also we've had those companies that say they have a developer platform, but they're missing documentation for their APIs, or even worse, they have no APIs or SDKs at all. So that's the missing API, open API spec, or even just not having an API. And then there's having to hunt for all the different documentation. It's not well written, or to find it, you realize you have to download it as a PDF, or it's gated by a password. For a public tool, you have to download the whole PDF. Or what was that? Yes, Workday cough. So it's access gated, it's a PDF. There's all sorts of things going wrong in that instance. And then there's the examples of different departments having different ideas of what's being built. The customer really wants something different, or examples of how you actually put something together or how you use it. Accessing a development tool itself should not be like you're trying to put together IKEA furniture, but too often it is. Who else has had that experience where it feels like you've had to really piece everything together? It's not actually documented. It's not laid out. The SDKs, the APIs are all missing the things they need in order for you to be successful. Yeah, and then there's what Ramiro talks about here. Was this time he worked on a team, CI environment so different from local to production, only actual real way was to validate a change was in production, which, to be completely honest, we all test in production. And if anyone wants to disagree with me, what's the first thing you do when you've deployed something? Pray. That's true. That's. I feel like that happens when you push the button. That's, for me at least. That's yeah. The second thing, that happens is you go and check to make sure the web page pulls up. You're testing in production. That's literally what it is. Now, some people, we did it a lot more like Ramiro's company here did. You just kind of hope that if there were no issues, then it's probably okay and you can go home. This one I call the CI as magic 8-ball process. So some of you may know what that's like. I used to work at Circle CI, and we had lots of instances of that with customers that really didn't know how to implement continuous integration. So what about epically bad websites? Who here can think of an epically bad website that might put eBaum's world to shame? Who here, when I say eBaum's world, you're like, oh shit. Okay, a couple of you young ones like me, we remember that. Don't let this fool you. I've only been in tech for 30 years, and I started when I was 3. So, yeah, that really wasn't supposed to be a joke, but I guess here's where we are. I guarantee you, nothing is as bad as the Yale School of Arts website. Oh. Now, if you go, you know what? That's got to be a joke. Right now, go to art.yale.edu on your phone or your laptop. This is real. Notice it says Fall 2024 visiting artists select, like this is real. They couldn't even, like I can understand, like you want to be artistic with CSS, which like that's, anytime you write CSS, it is art. But they couldn't even use, like they couldn't even tell the background to like be contained. It had to be a, let's just make this repeat itself over and over and over. So I guarantee you, you can do a much, but well, it's not bad on mobile because it's only the width of the stool. Okay, yeah, it is. It's only, this is actually the first website that was intentionally designed for mobile and only mobile. And so I guess this does make sense. Also a terrible experience. So I'm actually looking forward to when it turns to December, like when it goes to the winter schedule, to see what this actually becomes. So check back, if you want to follow along with me, I'm sure it'll be fun. So we can have DevEx as being this like disaster, or we can think about it as being a delight that we have. Who here has used Heroku in the past at some point in their career? Yeah. How awesome was it to be able to run the git push Heroku main? Or it was 10 out of 10, that was amazing. Or you able to just click the button that says deploy to Heroku. Like that itself was the epitome of what it meant to like eliminate all the barriers that a developer needs to be successful. You can click that and immediately your code gets pushed, built, and it's live. You get back a link that has it, boom, you're ready to go. That's different than what we used to have when we used to have to FTP it in. We'll talk a little bit about that here shortly. But Heroku, they are still around. They've gone through a lot of different iterations, but they are better now. And they're actually getting better. They're coming back to their roots, so I look forward to seeing that. But we've seen other things that are like that, like Netlify. Netlify has been another example of they took this and expounded on it even more. So let's think about it like what a definition of developer experience is. Let's kind of set the level here, level set it. DevEx is the journey of developers as they learn and deploy technology. When it's successful, it focuses on eliminating the obstacles that hinder a developer or a practitioner from achieving success in their endeavors. So that's probably a good way to kind of set that. My good friend Jessica West kind of succinctly put that together. It is their overall satisfaction with and efficiency that they have while they're working on software projects. It's the tools, we talked about documentation, the processes, the environments that they're using to interact with their code. All of those things, with a positive DevEx, all of those things are crucial for enhancing their productivity, enhancing, how quickly and effectively they can build, test, and deploy software. Now, I will pause for a second and say 95% of the images in here have all been created with ChatGPT. So, which is fun. It's a fun way to, instead of going and searching the internet trying to find images, you just have, this thing builds you images, which is why we have, let's see if this works. Whoop, nope, that didn't work. Never mind. Which is why we have, obviously, the same guy in multiple places. He's missing an arm in a few places. He has hair. The woman that I think in this one has hair. Yeah, has a beard down here. It's AI overlords are going to help us project things better. But it is fun to do this. So if you see any images that you're like, that doesn't look right, it is ChatGPT fault. It also could be me trying to draw, which, yeah, we'll get back to that. So it is, as we talk about DevEx, it's very integral to how you as an organization, you as software developers, practitioners, if you're in DevOps, it's important to how successful you can be. And so who here in their organizations have a developer experience organization or DevEx engineer or something that's in their organization? Atlassian? Okay. Don't take back what I said earlier. Okay. It can be. Yeah. So, and we'll talk a little bit about that when it comes to especially platform engineering. That is a piece of that. So we'll pull into that. Thanks, Jonathan, for just giving the rest of my talk. I appreciate that. So I appreciate that your prompt to say something was supposed to be later. So yeah, great. That's awesome. So when we think about like the different concepts that are out there, you have DevEx is one. You've got user experience. What differentiates it from your typical when I think about it, when a lot of people talk about developer experience, is that UX, it's primarily prioritizing the end user's ability or their usability and overall experience for the end user. It's about software intuitive, making it intuitive, easy to use, enjoyable for interaction. So that's a lot of times that's more related to just the ability to use a piece of software, not to develop with it which is part of using, but we'll see some of the different differences here. I'm an English, not major. Context for UX, it really involves a lot of UX user research, wireframes, testing product to optimize a user satisfaction. But DevEx focuses itself on making tools, processes, and environments that developers are using to be efficient and pleasant. So there is some relation, but there's a lot more of a focus on what the developer needs to make those very things that users are using. When we think about developer productivity itself, the focus there is measured in terms of the output with emphasis on efficiency and performance. So developer experience is not the same as developer productivity. Anyone that's really pushing stuff out there right now, they have a lot of good reports and things around what developer productivity is, but they kind of lump it under developer experience. And yes, it's important to have good metrics. It's good to understand how well you're performing, but that doesn't mean that the developers in your organization are happy. It doesn't mean that what they're doing is that they're having a good experience using that tool. It just means that they might be able to pinch some, dollars out of that penny a little bit more than they used to. But that's not about the developer. That's about the bottom line for the company. So beware when we think about developer productivity is not the same as developer experience. Sorry, there's the thing we were supposed to say. And then the way it kind of differs is that it's not capturing the full experience of developers. So I already said that, the efficiency, satisfaction, well-being, all that. Okay, so the pieces around developer experience itself, it is a holistic view that encompasses all aspects of the developer journey. And it's very unique in that it integrates elements of that UX and productivity, but with a broader scope of the psychological safety, community, and feedback loops that are very much important with how a developer is building and creating software. All right, so my name, Jeremy Meiss. That was a long introduction, but I do have you for the next 3 hours. So introduction's gonna seem like a real short, drop in the bucket or so. So my name is Jeremy Meiss. I've been doing some DevEx consulting, DevRel for quite a few years, over a decade. I'm also a DevOps Days Kansas City organizer. I do work at a company called OneStream, but they are not paying for me to be here, so so that's where we are. All right, but developer experience itself is not a new thing. The first mention of developer kind of experience as a concept was in this paper that was presented at the June 2012 IEEE International Conference on Software and System Process that was in Zurich. There's a lot of different references in the paper going back to 1985 itself that talked about programmer performance and the effects of the workplace. So there's an even longer history around how we've looked at how developers, programmers, software engineers can be productive or can have a good experience in their workplace. A few things stand out in this paper. This is a really great read, but because it's IEEE, they charge you $30 for that. And so if you want to have a read of it, let me know. We'll leave it at that. So the first thing that they kind of talked about this new ways of working, where development was globally distributed, integrated, self-motivated external developers into software ecosystems would require a better and more comprehensive understanding of devs' feelings, their perceptions, motivations, identification with their tasks in their respective project environments. So that's very much what we're trying to see today without this big focus on productivity. The second thing was the line that DevEx could be a means for capturing how devs think and feel about their activities at work, and that improving their experience impacts things like sustained team and project performance. So all of this interest, it really isn't new. It just has been driven a lot by the pandemic we went through, and companies trying to see how they can make more out of it. We've all been there, though. We've all been told to kind of adopt this new way of working or using a new tool. Had something that maybe somebody from your C-suite has a buddy that's down the street, they play golf, and he has his own tool that evidently says that it's amazing and it will have 10x engineers grow off trees, and that you should start using it. And we use it and we know it's shit, but yet, by golly. And I was told there was only a 7 profanity filter on the microphone, so I feel like I'm getting close to that. So in a few moments, I don't know what'll happen. They told me something. Anyways, you've used these things before when you know that it's just not a great tool. So we've also seen, I'm gonna go kind of through some of the history of kind of bring maybe a little bit more personal into how we think about how developer experience is shaping the way that we as engineers have been using and building software. The IDE is a great example of how we used to have text-based development, and then we moved into some integrated developer environments that changed the way that we do. I'm going to mention a lot of different programming tools, IDEs and text editors and such over the next few minutes. This is where, again, I come back to the raise your arm proud if you know or have used one of these things that's been mentioned. It's very much audience participation, helps you stay awake, which therefore I can stay awake. So, all right, so great example of this evolution. Prior to the 90s, you mostly had text-based editors. So who here knows Vi? Whereas, VI. Evidently, according to O'Reilly, that Vi really should have been called 6, and we missed the boat. It was created in 1976, and it was included in the first BSD Linux release. So it goes, it has a long-standing history. Then we had Emacs in 1985, Vim in 1991, my personal favorite, Nano, primarily because it ships on just about everything, and also because I can use it without having to throw my computer out the window whenever I want to exit, which means that I'm saving the environmental ecosystem we have without just throwing computers out all the time because I can't use Vim. So, you should also use Nano or, not Vim at that point. NeoVim's another one people like say, oh, what about NeoVim? I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, there's that. And then we had, what did I say in there? Yeah, Nano, sorry. Good. Okay, so a few native IDs also themselves came out in the mid-80s with Turbo Pascal. Only a couple of you, good. That was in 83. Apple's Macintosh Programmers Workshop in 1986. Anyone? Raise your hand, please. There's one of you's trying to run your hand through your head and go, I don't want to say. Yeah, that's kind of pretty much how developers felt about it as well. And then one of the first IDEs that had a plugin concept itself was HP SmartBench. Who remembers HP SmartBench? Why am I the only one that ever remembers this thing? It shipped with its own library that just kind of came with the box. And actually, it would be a big box. I'm not joking. This is a big box. It was extensively talked about also in the June 1990 edition of the HP Journal, which, it is a fascinating read. They laid out this idea and a vision of, and this was HP, Hewlett-Packard. They were laying out a vision of what software architecture and development should be, including, automated testing, distributed computing, integrated and interchangeable tools, and more. Things that we now today are like, oh, this is commonplace. HP in 1989 was talking about this, and their vision was using HP SoftBench in order to do it. Their vision still lives in one way or another. The early reviews of IDEs themselves, though, as a concept, weren't really great. In the 1995 Computer Week in Germany stated that the use of an IDE was not well received by developers because it would fence in their creativity. That was in 1995. Nobody really wanted to use that. But True to form, Borland Delphi. Anyone remember? Okay, good. It was released in 1995. Who knew that it was still around? So, it's still around. It was purchased by a company called Embarcadero, and they now have version 12 they just released. And you can do all sorts of native development with it. Again, who knew that Borland Delphi was still a thing? Launch of the World Wide Web. The explosion of growth. We had IDEs started becoming more graphical, had a more modern look and feel. Who knows what the first WYSIWYG, well, first, who knows what WYSIWYG stands for? Okay, cool. What you see is what you get. Good. Who knows what the first HTML WYSIWYG editor was? Nope. No. No, it wasn't. It was SGI. They had something called WebMagic. It was released on January 25th, 1995. It was built in less than 90 days. It was SGI realized they needed to do something if they were going to try and stay relevant, and they heard that Microsoft was trying to come out with this thing called Front Page, which they actually purchased. Yeah, it was close. Which was actually purchased from a company. Do you know what it was purchased from? A company called Vermeer. They purchased it in October of 95. So they rushed this thing out. I'll try and put a link on the history of how WebMagic was built. It's a fascinating engineering story. Okay, so Dreamweaver came out in 97. Macromedia acquired something from iBand called Backstage. Different Backstage. That was acquired in 96. Dreamweaver, who remembers Dreamweaver? Okay, yes. How many of you, it was your first foray into web development? Yeah, it was kind of revolutionary in the sense that it was very community supported. You could go out and find go to the forum that Macromedia, and this was not just Dreamweaver. Macromedia had this kind of thing where they would create areas for you to create your own plugins and your own snippets and your own kind of things that you could use to build into your website that would add a lot of new programmatic function and such. It was really kind of ahead of its time. And then there was Microsoft. There's Dreamweaver. I gotta forget that I have to push the button. Netscape Compose. Who remembers Netscape Composer? It was packaged with an enterprise suite that they were doing. That was their kind of foray into it, very short period of time. And then Front Page 2000 was released. That was Microsoft Visual Studio was in 97. Who used Visual Studio 97? A few of us, yeah. And then there was Front Page 2000, which included Front Page server extensions so that you actually could interact with an IIS website from your IDE, whereas before you still were pretty much building and pushing with FTP to your to the website. Who used Visual Source Safe as a those were the terrible days. Yeah, didn't get much better for a while. But then we had NetBeans, 2000 for Java, IntelliJ and Eclipse followed up. 2001, IBM kind of released, I think IBM rolled out, I think it was Eclipse that they pushed out from an open source perspective. All of these things, then came out that had a lot more enhanced functionality, more sophisticated features. Intelligent code completion was something that all of a sudden started out IntelliSense. That was the first thing that it was wow, we can actually type and it'll correct for us. And there was refactoring. You also had you had version control started to be integrated into that. Cruise control was one of the first kind of CI/CD platforms that was out there. You could kind of start to integrate with some of those. So a lot of noticeable increase in support for multiple languages. Then the late 2000s brought about more lightweight IDEs. You had Sublime Text. Yeah, Sublime Text is great. And then there was Atom, and Atom was great. Always feels like I'm saying Atom, and I always feel like I have to say Atom, and then it just really is weird. VS Code, of course, great. It's been great. You started to see they catered to a larger range of developers. You also saw a lot more speed, user-friendly interfaces. You now could kind of customize it the way that you wanted. That was going to try and make you as successful. You also had a lot of plugins. You also had, starting to be where it wasn't just developers that were using, able to use these. They started to have plugins that allowed for, practitioners, people in DevOps, operators that are actually able to now build out scripts, and you have, things with Ansible and such. So that's, a lot of integration there. And then we've seen the rise of cloud. So you got stuff like, who remembers PHP Anywhere? Okay, it became Code Anywhere later. And then there was Cloud9. AWS bought that. And then Glitch. Remembers Glitch? A few people use Glitch. And then Gitpod, GitHub Codespaces. Google released Project IDX this year. And they all really kind of changed this game by offering fully configured development environments that you could access from anywhere. It was not, no longer did you have to have a complex local setup, or you forgot your laptop and what are you gonna do? You now can utilize a web interface. So we went from this kind of sentiment about what IDE could be, is that it's just not gonna, nobody can get creative, to now having these things that if our IDEs don't have this, then we're probably looking for something else that does, at least a large percentage of these things. So, as we I go through all of this really to just illustrate the overall developer experience and how software development has evolved, leading to where we sit with IDEs now. So things that were back in the 60s we didn't really think was needed are now really expected norm. One of the biggest contributing factors to where we are today with DevEx, though, is this kind of rise of DevOps. DevOps itself, who here has DevOps org inside their company in some form or fashion, or DevOps engineers, or platform, that's your clue. Yes, I would be thinking about something like platform engineering. Yeah, we rehearsed it and it just didn't work out that time. But DevOps itself emphasizes a lot of collaboration, automation, continuous integration, delivery, which has led to the development of a lot more integrated and streamlined development environments and tools. Pretty much everything that you're using now, I think we'd be hard pressed to find something that wasn't influenced by DevOps, and the way that that we perform and the way that we work has something to do with this way of kind of building out collaboration and automation. So before DevOps software, we did it was a slow and disjointed process. I'm thinking back 30 years ago when I started my career, we just didn't, everything was moving slower, but it was a lot more manual. We'd write code, we'd toss it over the wall to, operations, who then they were responsible for deploying it. So this lack of collaboration automation meant that a process that, really was inefficient and had a lot of frustration for everyone involved. It also led to a lot of miscommunication, and each team was really working in a lot of these silos that either were created by some form of need or just kind of naturally evolved because of this, it's our code, not yours, and it's not my problem, not yours. So, deployments, we had a lot of manual, they were time consuming, a lot of errors. A single change could take weeks to go live. I spent time at Sprint, spent 11 years at Sprint, and we would go through, in the time I was there, we went through 6 billing system projects, and those took about a year and a half. And by the time, or about 2 years, and about a year and a half in, they realized, it's not going to be what we wanted. We've already spent these millions of dollars. We're going to start a new project. And so you never really got anywhere. It just took forever. So it could take weeks and years and months for when issues arose, or the blame game was always this big thing. And so the manual, a lot of things were error prone, all kind of came together. Lengthy software development cycles themselves. So DevOps itself kind of emerged in about 2007, if I'm thinking about this right. Yeah, about 2007 emerged as a response, 2006, to growing demand to have faster, more reliable software delivery. It bridges that gap between development and operations, fosters collaboration, shared responsibility, open communication. And when all those things are kind of integrated together, you get automation, where you can start to get your building and your testing and deployment, all those things. Who here actually does testing? I feel like I need to ask that question every time. What are the rest of you doing? Just deploying, just push into FTP, and it just goes there. You just raised it because you felt bad that you didn't raise it for saying that you did testing. Okay, got it. All right, great. So yeah, that kind of fits into it. That shift, it really has accelerated delivery. but also is improving a lot of the reliability, enabling teams to collaborate, deploy with confidence. So I don't want to really beat a dead horse here, but automation is the backbone of DevOps. We as humans are really, really bad at manual processes. Having to hit the enter key multiple times or a space bar multiple times, eventually we're going to get tired, our fingers cramp up, and we make a wrong thing, and now we've deleted production, or we've done something else that we have to replay. Like, repetitive tasks are just not good for us as humans. Automation is really good at that. So automating your pipelines, streamlining those repetitive tasks are all extremely important. So we've had systems when it comes to like deployment, building and deploying things like Jenkins. You've got Docker that's out there. Kubernetes, Kubernetes to a lot of people just solves all your problems. Just give it to Kubernetes, it'll take care of it. Not really, but that's the orchestration. You got the Docker. All of those things kind of fit into this idea of how we can automate the things that we're doing within software delivery. So one quick thing I talked about using ChatGPT for these. I tend to just say, okay, I'm going to talk about this, and I want you to give me a image that illustrates this. So I told it to say, this is ChatGPT and Gemini. I want you to just kind of say, this is another point to be involved. One of these was ChatGPT, the other one was Gemini. I said, create a pixel art illustration showing the evolution from text editors to cloud-based IDEs, emphasizing the progression in development environments in the style of the classic image, which showed human evolution from ape to man. Who thinks that this one here, that doesn't work that way. Who here thinks this is ChatGPT? Thanks. Look at that. Who here thinks the one on the left is ChatGPT? Okay, got a couple. Who thinks it's Gemini? The rest of you are like, I really don't know. I'm half asleep. Anyways, great. What about the one on the right? Who thinks that one's ChatGPT? Okay. What about Gemini? Okay. First one's ChatGPT. The one on the right is Gemini. So, they produce drastically different ways. And this was one image from that showing, I don't know why it had to, I don't understand that. Anyways, we're getting off track. I have ADHD, if you didn't already know, or didn't already tell. So, yes, so there's, the way that makes these presentations interesting. All right. So, as we've kind of had streamlined workflows with DevOps, eliminated a lot of the bottlenecks that we'd have, revealed a kind of a new opportunity to improve the day-to-day experience for developers. With automation, collaboration, reducing a lot of the pain points that we have, companies could really shift the focus beyond just delivering software quickly. They could start to look at investing in the tools and the processes and the culture that enhance the developer satisfaction and productivity. And then, it's really paved the way for this thing we now call developer experience. Who here in the last few years has gone through some type of we're going to start using this new tool, this new process, this new thing, and has had it's going to help make us more productive or more efficient? Yeah, I've seen more of that in my career in the last 3, 4, 5 years than I've seen in years and years before. So that's definitely paved it. And it is a natural evolution, though, of DevOps, because DevOps really laid that groundwork, but DevEx itself, developer experience, takes that even further. And so what I want to do is kind of talk through some of the ways that the rise of DevOps has kind of birthed what we see as DevEx. So we've got the development platforms. Those platforms are really simplifying a lot of the ways that you as a developer or even as an ops practitioner potentially are getting your environments up. You're able to go out. We've seen things like IDPs, so self-service. We'll talk a little bit about that. But our developer platforms and internal tooling has really brought those things out. We've had a cultural shift where collaboration and shared responsibility is really at a focus. Who has a lot more of those interactions when they're building or when they're thinking about projects now with other areas of the company than they used to? Yeah, we're starting to see that break down a lot of that communication barrier. That openness and teamwork, the modern implementation of dev experience, where we've seen developers are really just more empowered to make a lot of these decisions than having to put in an IT ticket and wait for it to, be up there. And we've seen a lot more of like a fostered trust, encouraging a lot more knowledge sharing between the different organizations, trying to break down a lot of this, like throw it up over the wall, and everybody participate in building experiences for customers or for internal, if that's how you're doing it. So, some of the pillars, and we'll talk now about like what are the core pieces of what developer experience is and how it can be applied in your organization, and move into like what are some of the core tenets that you in your organization hopefully can utilize to start kind of improving the developer experience on what you're delivering either internally or externally. So, onboarding is a really important piece for developer experience. When you've got somebody, whether it's the first days and weeks that somebody is joining a team, can really make or break their perception of that organization. I don't think companies understand, especially executives, that developers themselves tend to have, they talk, they know what company, they probably know somebody that works at a company that they're trying to get a job at, and if they don't have a great experience, they're probably not going to go there. We share that stuff out. We talk about it. So, having an understanding of that. So some effective strategies for good onboarding of developers onto new teams or into a new company is having these kind of onboarding kits. That could be like environment setup guides that you've put together so that they know what their laptop should have. Example projects they can look at that has shown kind of how you build some of the core technologies changes, decisions you make, some walkthroughs so they get a core idea of how you do things. Mentorship, pair new hires with experienced developers, accelerate their acclimation to your environment. Everybody's company is different. Everybody does things and uses, even if you're all using Visual Studio, you're probably using it a little bit differently than someone else out there. You might rely on different extensions. So helping them understand how that works. When you think about measurement of how do you know if somebody's really being onboarded? How long is it taking them to actually make their first commit into the code base? Are they, or time to first merge? Like how long does it take for the thing they put out there, now it's merged into the code base? Look at that, and that can start to kind of help you understand how well you're bringing new people on. Typically companies think it takes about 6 months for a new developer to get ready to go and get acclimated, which is just ridiculous because people leave at about the 9th month or 12th. But that's too long. So if we can shorten that and you can be more productive, your happiness about the organization is probably going to be a whole lot better. Also looking at a baseline. I put this it's kind of meant to be a baseline, but it does look like a big smiley face now I look at it. Understand where you are now and then start to track from there. Don't just pull some, out of the cloud. Doesn't matter, definitely not Oracle's cloud, but don't pull out of the cloud. That was a really bad joke, I'm sorry. Some idea of, you should take 20 minutes. Like figure out where you are now and then make some improvements. See where you can go from there. So establish those baselines. Impact on day-to-day productivity. So poor documentation is really a common source of frustration. Who all's joined a organization and had no documentation on how you're supposed to do anything? Yeah, then you start asking a lot of questions and you just sit there and you just don't know what you're supposed to be doing. So having things like living documentation, ensure that it's regularly updated. Have the people that are going through it the first time in that whole process, if they see things that are different, have them help make those change. Help this always be getting updated. Having those developer portals, have a centralized knowledge hub internally that internal and external developers, if you have a tool that's used externally as well, that has that place where you know to go for all of the information you need. Examples of good documentation would be companies like Stripe and Twilio. They've set the stage. They've always been that way. They've just been a really great job of having documentation of how you use their tool. And internally, everything is documented. That's just the culture that they do, and it starts from the beginning. So they're a really good example to look at with that. Continuous feedback. Implement effective feedback loops. It's really essential for identifying all the different pain points. I talk about like when somebody new is joining, that feedback they have early on is extremely important because that's that first interaction they have with your tool. Capturing that, or in the ways that you do things, capturing that early is a whole lot better than later. So, doing regular surveys, quarterly satisfaction, we've all seen those things, but look at them from a developer satisfaction standpoint. Don't look at it from the, hey, do you like, having 6 days this month for vacation, or would you rather, make it something that is about their experience and happiness using your internal tools and processes. Feedback forums, internal communities where, devs can voice their concerns, suggest improvements, act on that feedback. Don't just take it, but show the examples inside the company of, hey, we got this feedback, and here are the actionable steps that we're going to do with this. Don't let it sit there. Your employees, your developers are not going to want to give you any of that feedback if they don't see that it actually makes a change. So the backbone of really modern development, CI/CD, and automation is extremely important. Make sure that you automate everything that you can, everything possible. Not everything should be automated, but everything that can be, should be. So that's like everything from code linting can be automated, infrastructure testing, software testing. You can do a lot in a UAT environment with automated testing. It reduces a lot of that friction. There's a post out there that and I'll post these slides out that will have a link to it, but Paige Bailey at Google wrote an amazing article on how she kind of automates a lot of the mundane tasks she has throughout the day is actually automated through AI, and gives her a lot of the things. It's actual data that she can use to build out her day and to make a lot of these tasks better. So find the things you can automate and do that. Get that from other people in the organization. Optimize your pipelines to provide those immediate feedback on the changes. You've all probably hopefully heard the term fail fast, fail often. You want, if there's an error, you want your builds to fail then and not wait till it's all the way done. That way you can get the feedback on what you've done quicker and you can make a change quicker. If you don't have the right things in place that stop the build or get you that signal, it's where observability, telemetry comes in, then you're missing opportunities to provide a good experience. There are kind of issues where you can't overcomplicate things. You can make it to maybe there's too much interaction, or you're not using caching or something in your pipeline. So you've just made it overcomplicated where it's building, taking too long, or you're pulling in too many things that you don't need to do in your dev environments, but you do need to do in your production. You're just making it too complicated. So try and avoid that, but it's important to automate. We think about developer self-service, infrastructure orchestration tools you've got Kubernetes and Terraform. Those should be easy to use and should be developer friendly. Simplify your deployment processes. So tools like Pulumi, serverless framework, all kind of enable developers to deploy without a lot of deep DevOps expertise. Put the things in their hands that allows them to with guardrails spin something up without having to go through the long process necessary to get it like we used to. But some of those challenges are you've really got to ensure that you've well documented all of your processes. Go back to that documentation. I don't think any of us like writing documentation, but it's extremely important to make sure that we document our processes so that you're not getting that call in the middle of the night. You have the run books, you have the things that everybody knows where to go for how to fix it and what the potential processes are and what the potential errors are. All right, so culture. We think about DevEx, having that supportive and feedback-oriented culture within your organization. Team structure matters. So having a lot of cross-functional teams. Who here works on a team or a rotation of cross-functional within your organization where you're kind of moving things around and now you're in this, maybe this sprint you're working with these, and this sprint you're over in this team. Anyone have that? I know some companies do it. Okay. That can be a good way to kind of help everybody kind of align with clear ownership, so you're reducing a lot of confusion. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. And sometimes people can step in when needed because they're familiar with how things are working in that other team. Psychological safety, teams that feel safe to share those concerns and experiment and contribute and being able to say, well, I tried this and it didn't work, but here's the things I learned, and it not be negative towards them, helps that everybody's contributing to a better, stronger developer experience. So make sure that's also played into how you work on your culture and team structure. All right, got a few more things and we'll be done. Balance your productivity and well-being. Burnout, it is significant, it is real, and it is a big threat. So make sure you've look at ways that you can work on encouraging autonomy, work-life boundaries, promote disconnect from work. That is more for your management. Hopefully there's managers in the room. If not, give me their email and I'll just send them something out of the blue. It'll be from an anonymous account. But promoting disconnecting from work. Don't tie everybody in to always be online. Create that culture of support where initiatives like wellness programs, having no meeting days, those kind of things actually do make a difference in the, ultimately even, I'll say in productivity, but they make a difference in the happiness and the experience of developers and operations in your team. So it's extremely important. Now, you may be in a position where you want to help drive the changes needed to improve DevEx in your organization. But I said this in a couple different places, but the level of investment that a company is investing in DevEx can be a reflection of a company's values towards its employees, especially the developers. Strong focus on DevEx shows that commitment to employee well-being and efficiency, and where you're prioritizing DevEx helps foster a culture of excellence and innovation. So, if you as a company don't have processes in place to gather the feedback internally and even externally, I really question your commitment to a good developer experience, is if you don't have that stuff in play. And so it starts internally, it starts from the top. It's important that it's shared responsibility across the teams, but it has to be prioritized by leadership down. It has to be something that affects the bottom line. So it should be OKRs. It should, if you do OKRs, it should be something that conveys that something is important, or else it won't happen. So identify some DevEx champions in every team, have them be the ones that drive the feedback and bring that together, bring that back to leadership and say, okay, here's the things. Establishing those feedback loops, you can do that with the surveys, but you can do that internally. Have those champions really be the ones, and that should be rotating. It shouldn't always be somebody that they're always in the spotlight. Give other people the opportunity to really champion it, so that you're giving voice to everybody. Simplify your workflows, eliminate bottlenecks. So that's things like, I talk about automation. It's extremely important. Look at ways like with testing, deployment, code reviews, that you can automate that and take away a lot of that toil that happens within your organization. Developer toil is a very real thing. Comes back to that, we're really bad at repetitive things. Implementing self-service for your environments. So if you don't have that in place already, there's a lot of different ways to do that. You've got stuff like, your IDP, your internal developer platforms, Backstage, and of course, brain just went blank on Cortex. There's some others out there. It's important to look at ways that you can kind of have environment provisioning so that you're reducing a lot of the dependency on other teams. Having a strong community internally provides developers with a lot of sense of belonging and kind of a platform for them to kind of share what they're learning, both internally and externally. So, have some internal developer communities, forums, Slack channels, knowledge sharing sessions. We laugh a little bit on those lunch and learn kind of things, but where you can have a good impact internally is with those where you're actually sharing knowledge, sharing the things that you're working on that everybody can gain from. Encourage mentorship to help new developers grow, learn from experienced colleagues, and then use metrics to continuously monitor. I talk about getting a baseline, understand where you are by conducting internal, look at some of the surveys, look at interviews, look at your data of how well you're performing, so you know what where to start from, so you know where you go. And track qualitative feedback. That's where you get a lot of the surveys. Do your retrospectives. Figure out what you learned. Use that to apply for to the next project. Analyze those quantitative metrics, such as like deployment frequency, time to recover, build time, cycle time. Those things are important as well. Start to build a framework of how your company, your developers are performing. But that's like kind of the last stage of this, not just at the beginning. You need to work on that culture stuff ahead of time. So I'll leave you with this. DevEx is ruthlessly eliminating the barriers and the blockers that keep the developers and practitioners from being successful. So if you can, if you have that as the mindset that you want to be getting everything out of the way that keeps somebody from being successful on your team, in your company, using your tool, using your product, you will have a much better developer experience. So with that, have a couple minutes for questions. You can also find me on these places. I have pretty much moved to Blue Sky, and I'm done with the hellhole that is Twitter. And yeah, so you can find me there. Also LinkedIn. I have some stuff on dev. You can find me a lot of places. So with that, like I said, if you have any questions, happy to answer those. We got a couple minutes on that before we get ready for the big giveaway of tools. Yeah, we're gonna just have a bunch of DeWalt stuff's gonna be up here. So Milwaukee, everyone's good? Yeah. So yeah, any questions? Just stunned you with all of the history, and we got one? Yes.
Can you talk some about how this would look in different size teams? Because it looks like most of what you're talking about is in a large organization, but what if you have 2 teams of 3 developers?
Mm-hmm. Yes, great question. So for those that didn't hear, the question was, on a smaller scale, how do you think about where you have 2 teams and there's maybe 3 developers on each team? How does that work? I think a good way to look at it would be talk about some of that knowledge sharing and some of that rotation, where you start to get, you're still able to document. So one nice thing about small teams is that you're able to do a lot of documentation. It's, you don't have as much to document, but you start that culture early and then bring some in some of that rotation. So that everybody is kind of experiencing and working on some of those same projects, which can have a huge benefit. If something goes wrong, you have a good group of people that are able to do it, and it adds some variety. So I think that's probably the simplest way to kind of put a lot of this in place, is small, because you're a small team. So I'd start there. Anyone else? Yes?
How do you feel about some of these automated systems coming out requiring feedback from the engineers, scoring systems, industry standards, those kind of metrics?
I think they're bullshit. That's the short answer. The true answer is it depends, which is also a DevOps answer. But it really does depend, because if you're just scoring for the sake of scoring, and there's no okay, here's a baseline, and we've understand that we're the most successful as a team, and you can show that, and you can, if you don't establish that first, then all you're doing is creating an environment of, it's back to the okay, it's like the GitHub graph is that it doesn't really convey what work's actually being done. It just means, anyone can have a nice colorful display on the GitHub contribution by just pushing one change every few minutes. That's how you can game the system, and yet it doesn't tell you anything. So understanding that baseline, and if you put those types of systems in place with everybody understanding why and what it's going to do, then I think that's good. But if it just gets thrown in there and then everybody's now competing, you're measuring the wrong thing. People will game it that you're just measuring the wrong thing. So, anyone else? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And happy to answer any questions afterwards, but we're getting ready to give giveaways, so you got a few minutes for that. So thank you.